gathering some more. We have more folks who are coming over from the attendee. Maybe we'll give just a second for everybody to get settled.
Thanks, Deb. I was listening. I was just had a little trouble with my mute button. I was on Zoom all last week, every day. So yeah, it's good.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, a few more folks joining, and then maybe we'll jump right in. Oh, we had people are coming. We're seeing them coming in, and they're flipping over the panelists. So maybe we'll just kind of jump in and get started. It feels like we have most folks here, and we're at 12:01. Welcome, everyone. We're at meeting 21 of the West Seattle Bridge Community Task Force. I'm Angie Thompson, the facilitator for the group, and welcome to all of you. Hope you're enjoying the summer, and so it's great to see you all. Before we launch into all the content, I wanted to just remind folks a little bit about what we do in this meeting to make sure that these CTF meetings are accessible for folks. So we want to make sure to remind everyone that we want to use the chat feature sparingly. Raise your hand if you want to ask a question or make a statement. And that allows us to make sure that folks either who don't have access to the chat or maybe aren't able to read the chat, that they can still participate fully in the meeting. So want to just remind people of that. Identify yourself when you're speaking or asking a question. And really, if there is something if you forget and it ends up in the chat, we're going to make sure that we kind of bring that into the broader conversation. So just some reminders for folks. And for those of you who are listening live on YouTube, welcome. We also want to let you know, though, that if that we don't have questions, if you submit questions, those aren't being answered as part of this meeting. But if you have questions that you want to submit to the project team, you certainly do that at the West Seattle Bridge at seattle.gov email address. So just wanted to make sure you know that if you are listening live on YouTube. With that, I think we're ready. Mayor Nichols, are you ready to jump in and review our agenda?
Absolutely. The agenda is pretty straightforward, folks. It's good to see everyone. I apologize for missing our last meeting. There was no choice there, but I did miss you all. So Paulina is going to be a bit late for this meeting, and she will be joining us probably midway through the meeting, and she sends her apologies for that, but it was something she could not avoid. We're going to be talking about Reconnect West Seattle implementation plan and updates, including West Marginal Way. So we'll have a pretty good discussion on that. We'll talk a little bit about the 60% design update. We've reached that milestone, and then next steps. So as I said, pretty straightforward. I'm going to recognize Sam Zimbabwe, who wants to introduce someone who is representing Mayor Durkin. Sam?
Thanks, Mayor Nichols. I just wanted to thank everybody again for your participation here. Welcome, everybody, and then acknowledge that Deputy Mayor David Mosley is joining us today on behalf of the mayor. Still very closely monitoring what we're doing and keeping tabs on this and making sure that the full force of the administration is behind making this project happen. So welcome, Deputy Mayor Mosley, to the community task force.
Nice to be here. Thank you all very much. I'm pleased to see so many people that I've known for many years in Seattle as a part of this group, which probably explains why we're making good progress on the West Seattle Bridge. So I will be, unlike Paulina, Mayor Nichols, I'll be part of the first part of the meeting, but have to go away after some period later in that period. So, but I will be closely watching and listening to the first part of the meeting.
That's great, David. Welcome, and it's good to see you back.
Thank you, sir.
We have another new member, Liz Powell. Liz, if you would introduce yourself. You're representing the West Seattle Bridge Now group, I believe.
Yes, hi. I actually introduced myself last time around, but I'm happy to do it again.
I missed that, see?
Yeah. I'll just give you a quick kind of overview of who I am. I've lived in West Seattle for 14 years. I work downtown, so once we all go back, I will be commuting in a car, I should add. I need to leave the island a couple times a week at a minimum. And in addition to that, I like to get off the island as much as I like the vibe here. I like to explore, other parts of Seattle and even go to the mountains and whatnot. So just like all of you, I'm really eager to get the bridge back up and running. So excited to be a part of this group, to learn from you all, to keep us on track for our reopening, and to represent West Seattle Bridge Now.
Great, thank you. And once again, welcome. So that's it for the agenda. We're going to now go to community reflection. If you could take that down, Megan, so that we can see one another. Use the raise hand thing if there's something you want to bring to the committee's attention, things you've heard out in the community, issues that you believe or of concern to your neighborhood, your community group. I see Deb Barker. Deb?
Hello, it's great to see a lot of people back. And it's when you attend a meeting, you never know what's going to happen. So last week, I think it was a week ago, I attended the District 1 Community Network meeting. And this is a group that kind of encompasses all of District 1, West Seattle, the Peninsula, and South Park. And there was a group who I'd never met or seen before, and they presented their challenges. And I wanted to share their information with you because who knew? 16th Avenue Southwest Safety Committee formed because they are getting hammered by the West Seattle Bridge detours. Not only are they getting hammered by the West Seattle Bridge detours, they are getting hammered because of the corresponding then the Delray Rapid Ride work. So this, they go from the Bend north of the college all the way down 16th to Holden. They have a school area. Actually, they've got the college in their committee, and they are really needing to have some support. Right now, they're going to be having a meeting set up between SDOT and themselves, and Department of Neighborhoods is working on setting up that meeting, and Councilmember Herbold's office is jumping in, which I'm really glad for. I ended up chatting with them on Saturday and just kind of helping them understand levels of bureaucracy and no, you can't put in stoplights and things like that. But they are really hopeful that some attention can be thrown their way, similar with the Sylvan Way neighborhood, who are very grateful for their flashing speed signs. The last accident, by the way, that happened on Sylvan Way, which took out a vehicle, did not take out a tree. So I guess that's a positive, but that was a daylight accident. It's probably speeding as well. So just wanted to introduce you to the 16th Avenue Safety Committee and let me know if you'd like more information about that. And I think, I can't remember, there's a lot of folks participating in this meeting who probably are aware of them as well, but I said I'd share their information with you all because they're impacted by the bridge closure and they're not part of the Reconnect West Seattle. So thank you.
Thank you, Deb. I don't see any other hands raised. Anyone else want to? All right, then we will move forward. We're going to talk about Reconnect West Seattle, and Heather and Sarah will take the lead in this part of the agenda.
Hello, everyone. Let's see if I can start my video.
We see you, Sarah.
Oh, you do? I cannot,
Yeah.
the screen, there we go. Okay, I am all up and ready. Hello, everyone. This is Sarah Zora, the Reconnect West Seattle Mobility Manager. We will be talking about West Marginal Way today and what is all happening there with all the package of improvements that we have coming up. So if you can go to the next slide, please. As you all know, we've been doing some projects along West Marginal Way to really help with access and safety improvements along there, as we know that this is a major detour route for with the High Bridge being closed. We've recently, in the beginning of the year, with our citywide kind of traffic calming, reduction of speed, posted speed limits, we have reduced that speed limit from 40 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour, and also installed radar feedback signs. We have recently installed the Duwamish Longhouse West Side Sidewalk, and we are on track for installing that interim Duwamish Longhouse crossing signal and crosswalk, so that we'll have really good safety and access to the Duwamish Longhouse and Cultural Center, and that we anticipate that construction starting in August, September, pending some of our permits that we still need approval of. But we're on good track to make sure that we have a good crossing and crosswalk for better accessibility to the Duwamish Longhouse. As you know, we also have roadway changes, additional roadway changes coming. We're going to be in construction here starting, we've done some light construction already, but more visible construction starting this weekend at West Marginal Way and Highland Parkway intersection to really gain some of those travel time efficiencies. I'll talk about that in the next slide. And we're also still in design on the regional bike network connection and some of the freight access driveway improvements that we want to make. If you go to the next slide, I'll just remind people about what the West Marginal Way, Highland Parkway intersection improvement is about. And it's really trying to ensure that we can have more efficiencies at this intersection and make sure that the traffic signals can really produce and move more people than we are able to at this time. So this graphic is just a reminder of some of the things that we have coming up here. We're going to be removing portions of some of the islands that you see in the intersection right now, and those are highlighted in the orange color. And a big purpose of this project is to have two left turn lanes from southbound West Marginal Way to eastbound Highland Parkway, to be able to do those two maneuvers at the same time as a right turn from Highland Parkway to northbound West Marginal Way. So those were some of the big part of the intersection improvements that we were making. We're also going to be upgrading all of the adding accessible pedestrian signals, and we will be upgrading all the curb ramps at some point in the future as well. The primary curb ramp where we're going to be focused on is the northwest corner of the intersection, where we're going to be relocating a bus stop as well. So we really wanted to make sure that that had solid pedestrian amenities and accessibility. And again, this is really helping us to make sure that our signal timing is going to be coordinated with other signals along this corridor as well. We anticipating starting this construction for the more visible construction this weekend, Saturday. Our crews are going to be out there pretty early in the morning, like 4 a.m. We are committed to maintaining the same number of travel lanes during construction when we're out there in these early morning hours. And so you will see us at work starting here this weekend and then continuing in for a good couple months, I would say, for the extent of the project. We had committed to starting construction of this project in Q3, and we have been able to do that. So we're really excited that the design work has occurred and that we're getting our crews and a whole lot of alignment of different crews that need to be involved in this project. So I know that there was a few questions, Angie. Did you want me to?
Yeah, so there were two questions that went in the chat. It seems like one of them you answered, what's about the time of day of construction occurring and lane reduction. So I think you answered that one. Did you have a question that you wanted to bring up?
I do. And I just, I'm excited to see this occurring, but I'm concerned about the start date being at the end of this week. and the big meeting that's happening on the bridge happening after that. So my question is, what are you, how are you advertising this start? Are you putting up the big signs that something's coming? You really need to let people know about this from 1, 2, 3 directions, 4 directions, I guess, as soon as possible, well before anything gets started on the 17th, because everyone deserves to know what's going on, and not everybody attends this meeting.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Deb. Thanks for the heads up. We will do our typical press release and our construction notice, but we will see if there's additional things that we can help provide people so that they know we're in construction. We are committed, though, to try and make sure that the same number of travel lanes are going to be open and usable while we're in construction. So we're hoping that that is a good solution as well.
Well, thank you. I know that when we first started talking about these concepts, it seemed like it was a long way out. It seems like you've moved it forward a fair amount. I want to thank you for that. I know that that represents a lot of work on a number of people's parts. So thank you.
It's a really good teamwork with our design teams and our crews, and aligning it all quite appropriately to make sure we can get it done. So there's a lot of background going on for this project. Megan, if you can go to the next slide. So we are going to talk about some of the larger part of the roadway change project. As you all know, the connection for the bike, it would be now that we had recommended was going to be a 2-way protected bike lane in the outside curb lane and that southbound lane. So what you see in front of you here is a cross section of West Marginal Way Southwest looking northbound. We are committing to maintaining the freight mobility by having 12-foot travel lanes, which is something that's in our design standards. A 4-foot 2-way protected bike lane with a Jersey barrier as the protection and a larger buffer space than kind of typical, to really help improve some sight lines, provide a comfortable space for people riding bikes, and maintaining that mobility that we have, as all the analysis that we've shown, the impacts for people traveling in their vehicles would be negligible, about 5 seconds maximum on average total delay. Excuse me. You can go to the next slide, Megan. So the decision for this is that we will be building that bike connection to really connect the Duwamish River Trail to the West Seattle Bridge Trail, using that southbound outside lane to create a 2-way protected bike lane and on-street parking after the High Bridge has reopened in 2022. As you guys have been aware, we've been having conversations with the community task force, different stakeholders, adjacent business owners. We've received a lot of different input, some really strong negative opposition input, and some strong input that reflects how people feel the city should be moving for the future by adding mobility choices and predictability and safety. There was a lot of general consensus from all sentiments of people's opinions about holding off on building that project until after the High Bridge has reopened. If you go to the next slide, we really do believe that this project helps achieve our city goals of Vision Zero by eliminating high-speed passing, trying to get a single lane configuration for mobility. There's no impact to vehicle capacity because we know we have our single lane capacity limiter at the Chelan 5-way. And as you come approaching southbound West Marginal Way through our bridge structures, we do feel like this will help achieve Vision Zero goals we have for our city. And we'd also, by having the decision to build this after the High Bridge opens, we really do, it will allow us to see how traffic normalizes. You know, this detour route has been seeing a lot more traffic. It's typically 10,000 vehicles a day. We're about like 25,000 a day right now. So 15,000 more vehicles are using the roadway now. And we feel like it will be a lot better in some ways to just wait until after the High Bridge has reopened to install the facility. If you go to the next slide, I think we wanted to open it up for discussion, additional questions.
Yeah.
Let me, and people use the raise hand thing, please. This is a recommendation from SDOT to the mayor, or is this a decision the mayor's made?
This is a decision that the mayor has made.
Okay.
Yes, so we will be building the two-way protected bike lane for 0.4 of a mile and on-street parking for 0.2 of 0.6 of that quarter to really have that good connection for people riding bikes and a better, predictable and safer street for all travelers for that 0.6 of a mile.
Well, I think there's room to disagree, but thank you for letting us know. But I think from my perspective, co-chairing this task force, having it occur after the bridge is reopened, I think is really important. I think that sends a good message to people that that there's a sensitivity to the effect this is having on everybody. So thank you for, and thank you to the mayor for that.
Yep, for sure. We heard that pretty loud and clear. We don't, yeah.
Liz, I see your hand up.
Hi, Liz from West Seattle Bridge now. So, you know, from the community, what we hear is that traffic is terrible, that traffic is getting worse, that you know, as school starts again and people go back to work, that it's even going to get worse. And you guys have obviously done a whole lot of, you know, improvements along the way that you've been talking about on these calls and that are outlined, you know, online for everyone to see. But I'm wondering if there's, you know, have you thought about sort of measuring the return on investment for these improvements? Like, has, for example, creating additional bike lanes improve the lives of West Seattleites? You know, is there an opportunity to sort of gauge the public to see if all of this stuff is making an impact and making it, you know, aside from the traffic, making it sort of easier for commuting?
I'd say we heard a lot of different things from the public, you know, Liz, and some were for the project and really trying to understand and look ahead to see what kind of a future we want for the city of Seattle and how we need to have choices and safe choices for people to get around. And I think that, and then we had, you know, a lot of strong opposition of fear of change along that street and fear of potential impacts that maybe people think that we aren't recognizing or have not been able to recognize because the project is not built yet. I think that from a perspective of trying to ensure our streets are safe and have options for people on them, and recognizing that there has been found to be more negligible impact in terms of delay of travel time or a number of capacity or speeds, we feel like this project really will help meet some of the city goals as well as giving people those options to get around. I think that that we've heard such a lot of community comments on it, and you know, we have to take that all in and then use our data analysis, our modal plans and our policies and then make a decision. As well as the dynamic of the high bridge being closed. That was a huge part of listening to the community and recognizing that we didn't want more angst and frustration while we're trying to work with the impacts of the high bridge closure.
Okay.
I will just make a couple observations. First, this has been an issue for a very long time. There's a gap in the West Duwamish bike network. And I know during my administration, we dealt with it, tried to deal with it, and didn't find much success. There are two, this particular, and the mayor's decision is the mayor's decision, and I respect that. There are two safety issues that concern me, and as you move forward on this, I hope you really look at. One is the right-hand turn from southbound West Marginal Way across this bikeway. Mm-hmm. There are, I think, 11 driveways, and they represent everything from Parks Department facility, significant facility, to moving and storage companies. So making sure that that's done safely. Then the second safety issue that I perceive, having experienced people doing very bizarre things along West Marginal because of their frustration, is people using the center turn lane as a passing lane. I think there are some people out there, however unsafe it is, will attempt to do that in their hurry to get wherever it is they're going. So I keep an eye on those, please, and try and figure out ways to mitigate those potential safety hazards.
Yeah.
Any other hands raised? It looks to me like Commissioner shockingly, that Commissioner Steinbrook would like to comment. Go ahead, Peter. You're on mute.
Greg and Paulina, thank you once again for your tremendous leadership of this process of community engagement. I think we're on meeting 20 or something like that. I lost track.
21.
And this really speaks well to, I think, a sense of commitment that everyone has felt in participating in a respectful way and getting, the broad array of stakeholder views and input into the process. And I have to thank SDOT staff as well for a very well managed process. I think it's a model here. And we know about endless Seattle process, don't we, Greg? And the need to curtail that at some point, and to provide the leadership and decision making. And I think that's being witnessed. We do have concerns, grave concerns, on behalf of the Seaport as a managing member and the Port of Seattle. I've expressed my concerns in a letter or an email this morning. I did have an opportunity to talk with Director Zimbabwe earlier today. I just wanted to get these issues and questions out and do it in a transparent way. So it went out to everybody, I think. And I don't expect answers now for all these questions, but really the basic issues and challenges, as Mayor Nichols has said, is balancing bicycle safety, that's number one, with freight mobility and ensuring a viable, freight access through the corridor. It's critical to our seaport, as you know. We're in a time of upheaval and upending of everything. Traffic patterns may have changed permanently. We don't know what two years from now is going to look like. So I would just urge
1 year, 1 year from now.
Yeah, 1 year. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. That's even better. Sorry. I don't know why. I guess I've lost a whole year in the process of COVID. Thank you, Greg. But the primary issues here I have been mentioned, and they're in my letter. And I don't frankly understand why an environmental review has not been undertaken so that we could get some factual basis for making the decision about what the safest solution is, especially for bicyclists. But drivers also need to get through there. And as Greg pointed out, people's driving behavior is becoming increasingly more erratic and unpredictable. And that's really worrisome, especially to bicyclists. So I'll leave it at that. I did put my questions out. Happy to talk with anyone. Staff will follow up as well. But I'm very engaged in this topic and very concerned at this point on behalf of the Seaport and the Port of Seattle. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mayor Nichols, I can jump in a little bit on Commissioner Steinbrook's questions, and we'll follow up as well, because I know not everybody is here participating today, and it did go to the whole of the CTF. So first of all, thanks for the—
You probably won't let that happen again, right?
That's okay. But I think it's important. It is important for us to reach this decision point so that we can also keep our attention on all of the other important things that are going on. And there's a point at which engagement starts to take us away from other tasks as well. So we felt it was important to give some certainty and give some definition of when we expect to do this, but that we expect to do it. We don't know, it's a great point. We don't know exactly how traffic volumes will shift. We know that right now, West Marginal Way has taken the largest increase in traffic volumes of probably any street in terms of the detour routes, certainly in percentage terms, probably in volume terms. And that once the High Bridge reopens, it is unlikely that it will be anywhere close to where it is today in terms of volumes, because it never has been before. And even today, the vehicles going down this stretch of road are at or above the speed limit already. So we're not seeing the congestion problem here. We're seeing it at those places like the 5-way intersection and Highland Parkway and West Marginal Way, where we're making the improvements that Sarah talked about. You had a question about SEPA review and environmental review. SDOT always complies with the Environmental Policy Act. We always comply with our environmental responsibilities. And so we're not bypassing anything. We've done traffic analysis that we've shared and we'll happily continue to share in a transparent way of exactly what we think the potential impacts could be in terms of traffic impacts, but we will certainly meet our commitments under SEPA. We have, I spoke to you earlier today. There were a lot of people making a lot of contacts. We've gotten a lot of letters on this project, and we will communicate back to all of the stakeholders that have reached out to us in various ways and try to make sure everybody understands where we've come from. And we know that there's been a lot of folks. And then, I just lastly say, and before we go back to the rest of the other questions, the freight mobility remains a strong commitment. Sarah talked about some of the design choices that we're making in terms of how to design the street, the design of those driveways, the truck access in and out of the driveways remains a strong commitment for us, and safety of people in trucks and driving trucks and the people walking and riding bikes in the corridor is of paramount importance as we maintain that mobility going back and forth in this corridor.
Right.
Thank you
Thanks very much.
All right. I don't see any other hands raised or people gesturing. So why don't we move on to the next section, which I think, Sarah, you're also heading up?
Yep, thank you. Okay, so I am going to be moving on to talk about where we are with Reconnect West Seattle implementation plan. We just finished quarter 2. I'm going to talk about that, and then I'm going to bring Chris Philopoulos up from SDOT so that he can talk about our 2022 project prioritization process. So I'll start off, and then I'm going to pass it to Chris, and then I'm going to come back in again. So you'll see two other people, one other person, and me again. Nice. If you go to the next slide, Megan. Okay, so we are on good track for all the projects that were in our implementation plan. As you know, we finished delivery of the 2022 projects. And for the 2021 project, I said 2022, for 2020 projects, for 2021 projects, we have completed 5 of the projects already. 12 of the projects are starting construction or are scheduled to start construction. We have 2 projects still in planning. One of them is the neighborhood greenway access improvements that we're looking to make, and we've just kind of done our community engagement for that on 21st Avenue North Southwest. And we have another project that's still in planning for a crossing improvement at Dallas Avenue South and 14th Avenue South, right at the South Park side of the South Park Bridge. So we're working through some of the potential crossing improvements that we can make there. If you go to the next slide.
Wait, can you just talk about briefly about the 4 projects that aren't moving forward?
Yep. The 4 projects that are not moving forward are 2 of them are related to access to SR 509, and 2 of the projects really where we were looking to the feasibility of adding vehicle lanes to get into the merge of SR 509. And as we were talking about that further with our partners at the Washington State Department of Transportation, some of the things that we had been looking at for feasibility would not meet their criteria or mainline kind of needs for SR 509, where the different merge points are. So those 2 projects were not something that we could advance. Another project was going up the hill on Highland Park to Holden, and the idea to have some kind of pavement increased traction, and the way that the street is laid out would not have been able to accept that. And then we looked at also the collision rate and trying to see what problem we were trying to mitigate. And so we have a left turn pocket where we had been mitigating the traffic and collision concerns for that project. And the 4th one is escaping my mind right now.
Well,
and
maybe you can help refresh my memory where the Horton Street project in Soto Falls, because I haven't heard any updates on it, and maybe I missed something. Horton drainage for the east-west truck movement on Horton Street. And it was on originally, and I haven't seen anything. And honestly, I haven't been tracking it closely enough, but I just was wondering if it had been pulled off altogether.
Erin, I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't have the whole project list here, but I will have to check into that. We do have some projects on East Marginal Way as well, where we did some additional upgrades to the protected bike lanes and striping. And then we were going to look at some access things, but I am not recalling Hanford Street right now.
Not Hanford, Horton Street.
Horton, yep. I'm not recalling Horton either.
Okay.
I'll get back to you for sure after the meeting is over. Thanks for that. If you could go to the next slide. So some more highlights about what we've been achieving from our home zone implementation. As you remember, we have home zone program in South Park, Georgetown, and Highland Park. You can see some of the pictures on the side. There are a lot about traffic calming, pedestrian mobility within the neighborhoods, trees, plantings. You're going to see some more of coming into South Park and Georgetown as well. A lot of sidewalk beveling to really ensure that we can have people walking within their neighborhood business districts. Some bus stop access clearing so that we can make sure people have good, safe ways to get to the bus stops. And especially in South Park, 2 rectangular rapid flashing beacons to really help ensure people walking and biking can get across our major detour route on South Cloverdale Street. And then we've also done some sidewalk improvements to really, staircase improvements to really help that walkability within South Park as well. And if you go to the next slide, we also have this component of Reconnect West Seattle that really focuses on all the detour routes and traffic mitigation. So from this past quarter, we've done a couple of different projects as well to really help facilitate the Fire Station 36 to make sure people aren't blocking them in case they need access for emergency. We have installed, I think Deb has told us last month as well, with the different chevrons for the Sylvan Way. Speeding concerns that we've had there. We've installed additional radar feedback signs. We've lowered speed limit on the South Cloverdale detour route, and a lot of different paving projects too. We've actually had some pavement and heat issues from the heat we had. So we had to do an emergency repair along West Marginal Way, basically at Front Street. So our designers and crews have been quite busy trying to ensure that we are maintaining and allowing and ensuring those detour routes are operating as efficiently as possible. We do have some upcoming paving on Southwest Roxbury Street, and we're going to be doing that in partnership with King County Roads because we own half of Southwest Roxbury and they own the southern half. And so you'll see some paving coming up here between the blocks of 24th to 25th during weekdays due to the needs of our King County partners to do that construction coming up here. We don't want to avoid doing this repair because, as we know, the detour routes are heavily trafficked now, and we don't want the roadway to deteriorate more. So it's a conscious decision to make those repairs in good time.
Sarah, a couple of questions.
Okay, yes, please.
Pause for a second. Marcy, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, so thank you, Sarah. This isn't actually a question. I'd like to remind everyone that for transparency, for people who are on the phone and don't have access to looking at who's speaking, it's really important to just say your first name. So this is Marcy, and I'm speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy, for the reminder. Councilmember Herbold?
This is Councilmember Herbold. I just want to, I don't have a question. I want to thank SDOT for working with community members on Sylvan Way, even though it was a little outside of the originally targeted Reconnect West Seattle area. And want to also thank Deb Barker for her partnership in advocating for these neighbors.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really nice message. Thank you too, Deb.
Okay.
Okay, if you go to the next slide, I am gonna take a little time to pass the mic to Chris Vilopoulos so he can talk about our 2022 projects that we have coming up here for implementing Reconnect West Seattle. Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. This is Chris Vilopoulos with SDOT, and I'm here to talk about the 2022 project selection process that we recently concluded. This effort came from one of the 5 key goals of the Reconnect West Seattle implementation plan, which was to engage with the community to address localized needs as the West Seattle Bridge closure continued to impact neighborhoods. So we, up until the end of March, have been aggregating every community project request that's either been emailed directly to the team, has been sent to the West Seattle Bridge email, or was collected from basically any of the other outreach events that occurred in response to the West Seattle Bridge closure. We received almost 500 project requests from the community. As stated, we closed that review at the end of March. And we've been doing reviews of those projects, basically a rolling review that we've concluded recently. After collecting all those projects, we did an initial project review. This is just to ensure that these projects were actually feasible from a conceptual level, if these projects were actually related to the bridge closure and mitigation, if they stayed within a reasonable cost estimate. And also we reviewed projects that had already been constructed between the time that we received the request and the time that we're actually reviewing. Afterwards, we did a secondary project review where we looked at a series of evaluation metrics, which I'll go over on the next slide, to create a prioritization of projects. Not a prioritization in terms of the order in which we should construct them, but prioritizing the value of a project, I guess, or the amount of attention that SDOT should be giving it. Afterwards, we've gone ahead and selected 10 projects, which I will discuss in a minute. So you can go to the next slide. For the projects that made it past that initial review for feasibility, we looked at a few specific metrics for evaluating them. The first one, of course, would be equity, which is using the Racial Social Equity Composite Index to prioritize projects that score highly in equity. This index takes into account things like racial equity, health-related equity, and also economic equity for given census tracts. Along with that, we wanted to promote 2 of the additional key goals that were part of the implementation plan. The first would be mode shift, which is prioritizing projects that promote non-vehicle travel, namely projects that promote transit, bicycle, pedestrian, and carpool modes of travel. Along with that, we also wanted to prioritize locations based on their proximity to the detour routes. This is in relation to the key goal of mitigating traffic impacts on detour routes. So projects that were specifically on the detour route get higher attention, and then as you move further away, prioritizes less. Along with that, we wanted to include Two additional key points. The first would be safety through Vision Zero. So we prioritize locations that had collision patterns, recent fatal collisions, or are marked as bicycle and pedestrian hotspots from our Vision Zero programs. Along with that, we also wanted to give a little bit of deference to projects that could be built by crews, could be built in 2022, could be built relatively quickly as a high cost benefit. And we deprioritize projects that might have to go through our capital projects process or through contracting. And finally, we wanted to give a little bit of attention to our emphasis neighborhoods, which would be South Park, Georgetown, and Highland Park. Those projects got a little bit of bump in the prioritization just due to their ongoing impact from the West Yale Bridge closure. On the next slide, please. So on the right is a quick breakdown of the 10 projects that have been selected as a result of our review of that prioritization list. We're not going to get into the specifics of these projects, but we do have a link to that map. I believe right now we are committing to building only 10 projects in deference to the bandwidth of our crews going into 2022, and basically the availability of SDOT to design and implement these projects on the timeline that we're working with. And I believe that's all we have for this. Oh, and then here's a quick list of the 10 projects that were selected. In the interest of time, we're not going to be going over all of these, but this is available for folks to review. And if they have any questions, please feel free to email Sarah, Zora, or myself, and we'll be happy to respond.
Councilmember Herbold had a question.
Thank you again. Also in the spirit of projects that don't quite fit in the geographic targeting of Reconnect West Seattle, I appreciate, as Deb mentioned at the top of the meeting in the reflection section, really appreciate SDOT's work with the Southwest Seattle Coalition. That involves not only the college, but neighbors in the area and the PTSA at Sanislo. Just wondering, how does that work fit into what we see here on this slide? And then also for the 17th and Henderson beacon project. Can you just confirm that this is a flashing beacon?
Yes, so the 17th and Henderson project is a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, pedestrian activated. For the first question, basically any project that came from the community was lumped into this entire process. So be it a email from an organization or just a single private citizen emailing us, we treated them all equally.
Councilmember,
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, Councilmember Herbold. Yep. So we, from the home zones in Highland Park, we do have some designs that will be still being vetted for traffic calming on 16th Avenue Southwest. We were more kind of at the bottom half, I'd say, of 16th Avenue Northwest, but we have committed to doing an additional speed study for the northern section of 16th Avenue Northwest so that we can see what traffic calming devices or tools might be appropriate to help with some of the concerns we've been hearing from the 16th Avenue Safety Committee. And yeah, Deb, we have recently interacted via our partners at Department of Neighborhoods. We're getting an appointment, a meeting on the books with that safety committee. So we're trying to really ensure that we're hearing from a whole lot of different people and how we manage to get the designs going, and the crews to deliver is really how we're needing to weave the needle a little bit on making it happen.
Fantastic, thank you. And if you could just keep me in the loop on scheduling that meeting, I did commit to participate.
Okay, perfect.
So
yeah, we'd love you to be there. Thank you.
All right. Wonderful.
And I also just, for clarity's sake, Reconnect West Seattle is bigger than just the projects that we are doing. The whole mitigation effort also includes the more than 200 traffic adjustments, including things on Sylvan Way, that we have done throughout the peninsula and the valley. So we focused, we chose for good policy reasons to focus on our Reconnect West Seattle efforts on Highland Park, South Park, and Georgetown, because they're the ones that are receiving the bulk of the traffic from the detours. But we have done improvements all over the peninsula and the valley. So we haven't left 16th Avenue Southwest out at all.
If you're listening, that was Heather Marks.
Oh, sorry. Heather Marks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris, for letting everyone know how the process goes to try to get to these 2022 projects. If you go to the next slide, I'm going to show something that I showed last month, trying to take a comparison from 2020 and what traffic vehicle travel times look like, and doing that same comparison for a similar week in 2021. And similar to the last month in May, as you can see, traffic congestion and delay is continuing to get to increase as the COVID recovery restrictions have lifted, and people are returning to office and different activities. This is really just a graphic to show you guys a lot of red lines, meaning that there is more congestion. We do not have the same number of travel lanes going over that Duwamish River waterway. So we're really here to just try to make sure people are feeling educated about what's happening and what you're probably experiencing out there as you're trying to maneuver around your neighborhoods. Good news is that, bus ridership has increased from June of last year, June of this year, same as water taxi riders. So people are trying to, utilize the different choices and different ways to get around as they can. And we really appreciate that effort. If you go to the next slide. This is a beautiful picture slide of just reminding people that there are different ways to get around by different various transit adventures, such as the bus or the ferries, foot ferries, and then water taxi as well. So we really just wanted to make sure people remember that they have different ways and options to get around. And I wanted to give you more information about what's coming up here for, if you go to the next slide, what's coming up here for some of our travel options programs. So we do have a travel options program too. We call it like Reconnect West Seattle Mobility Action Plan. Mobility Action Plan is kind of broken into two different lenses in a way. One is the community-based travel options and then employer-based travel options. So the community-based travel options, we're going to be getting more and more visible and vocal and trying to ensure that we have good partnerships going on with different community organizations. We're really starting to work getting into the community to try to promote different travel options. That's kind of the implementation kickstart you see for August 1st. And then by the end of August, we're really trying to launch a Transit Go ticket that would be something that people sign up for and then have kind of a points rewarded for how you can get different trips subsidized, such as on transit or micro mobility. So we are hoping that and wondering what kind of potential in-person community events are out there that SDOT could be included. We will be at the Georgetown in-person kind of traffic event on Saturday, July 24th, which is pretty exciting. We've done some, neighborhood walks with home zones, but it's just going to be pretty nice to be in person and sharing ideas and hearing from the community. So we really want to start, if people are starting to do in person, and really make sure that our mobility action team can start to help present ideas for different ways you can get around the neighborhood or across that Duwamish waterway. We still have Sal the Salmon being quite active and trying to help people with different tips on getting around. And we have our our employer-based travel options, which is more of a focus on large employers and trying to help them and learn from them in their plans for return to office and what that looks like and what that looks like for West Seattle employees, and really ensuring that shuttles are going to be implemented in different ways that we can encourage employees of large employers to get around in a different way as well if return to offices coming up here for people. We're still working with Metro on vanpool promotions. Vanpool and shuttles are able to use the low bridge for reliable, good access. If you go to the next slide.
Sarah, can we pause here for just a second and go back to that slide? Because I think there's some questions on here that we wanted to ask for all of you
Oh, yeah.
in the virtual room, in terms of the events that, you know, should be on the list, potential community-based partner organizations. Wondering if there's some brainstorming that you all can help do in terms of what summer events you think would be good ones to be on the list. So maybe we'll just open that up and see if anybody has ideas that they want to suggest for community events. I don't hear it. Come on. I know you all live here.
You may find us reaching out to CTF members and seeing how we can, you know, get in your brain a little bit about reaching out more to community.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we paused. You didn't have quite think about it. We'll have time for Q&A. Okay, Sarah. So keep going.
Okay. I'm just going to do a quick low bridge access update, and just to let people know where we are with how access has been going. So we've received over 1,000 online and paper applications. As of July 1, we have granted access to be authorized users, conditional users, to be able to use that low bridge for the variety of these conditional users. And as a reminder, when we seek applications for August access to be a conditional user and authorized user, those applications are due tomorrow, July 15th. Which is Thursday. And just as a reminder, after you apply, you provide your license plate, you would receive an email approval of us with the date that your access starts. So if you receive an email from SDOT saying that you did gain access to be an authorized user to use the low bridge, make sure you look at that date, because we want you to be using it at an appropriate time so you're not getting citations potentially ahead of time. If you apply for August low bridge access, you would start on August 1st, and you have to apply by tomorrow. We will be sending out a low bridge access survey to the people that are an authorized user within the user groups to really help us inform what it looks like to be a conditional user in the access come 2022 when the Port of Seattle's Terminal 5 opens.
So the 108 individuals who are accessing the low-level bridge for that treatment, do they have to reapply each month?
Not each month. We have the individuals receiving life-saving medical treatment on a 90-day cycle. So there is another process they would have to go through after that particular time frame. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And I think the last slide that I will go over is the Reconnect West Seattle schedule. So we've been in design and construction on home zones on the Reconnect West Seattle plans. West Marginal Way we talked about quite a lot today. We still have some transit spot improvements we're doing. The traffic mitigation is a continuous thing that we're doing all along to really react and ensure that the detour routes are being maintained. And then the mobility action plan part of Reconnect West Seattle, you'll hear more and more information about as we start to get launched into our travel options program for both community and the employer-based kind of emphasis that we have going on. And with that, I will.
And we can pause. And Diane has her hand up. So Diane, you're first, and then we have Deb following you.
Thank you. Diane Sosney with SEIU Healthcare 1199 Northwest. You may have covered this and I might have missed it, but I have seen a growing backlog at the intersection of Marginal and Highland, the four-way intersection and the lights. And I wanted to know, what is the rationale for how it is timed and set up now? If you're coming, let's say, from downtown Seattle south, you go over the First Avenue Bridge, you take that first exit, puts you on, I guess, a continuation of 99, then you go left. I don't know what I think it's called 99, and then you make a left onto the extension of Marginal, and that is backing up. So it's troublesome, to be honest with you. The timing and how the traffic is backing up on the different points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and I'll say it's a very busy intersection with heavy movements in all directions.
Can you introduce yourself real quick?
Sorry, Trevor Partap, SDOT. Yeah, it's a very busy intersection with heavy volumes of traffic coming from all the 4 different legs. And we're monitoring that constantly and making adjustments as needed. So, but it is just a heavy volume intersection. I will say that we do change our timing by time of day. So in the mornings, when people are coming out of West Seattle, we favor the outbound movements. And then in the evening, we favor the inbound movements to West Seattle. So, but just again, it's just a very busy intersection, and there's a lot of traffic moving through there. And we're doing our best to keep it moving as efficiently as possible. And as you know, we're going to be making some changes here coming up in the not too distant future. And that's expected to improve efficiency, a little bit. But again, there's only so much traffic that we can push through that intersection. So hopefully that answers your question. But if there are, we can, if there's specific times of day that you have a particular issue, we can look at that and see if we can tweak it a little bit to favor those movements that you're talking about.
This is Matt Bowman, just to add on what Trevor just said. What we're seeing here is also related to the increased traffic, and as we get just beyond what that signal can handle, you see a pretty dramatic shift from barely being able to handle it to, wow, it can't handle it with only a small increase in volume. So we are really paying attention to that corridor. We've got our signal folks paying attention to refining the timing. If you're seeing something, you're like, hey, at 2 PM, it seems like it's not working for me, we would appreciate that. But there's only so much we can do.
Thanks, Matt. Heather, did you want to jump in?
Sorry, Angie, it's Heather. I just, not to put too fine a point on it, but this is the exact reason why it is so important for those of us who have a choice to not drive a car to make use of that choice. We simply can't move as many cars as we could when we had the bridge available. So this is a object lesson for that. Thanks.
Thanks, Heather. Deb, you had a question or comment?
Hi, this is Deb, and I was trying to respond to page 22. Megan, if there was slide 22, the program, the commuter program, if that could get back. Sorry. And I was, you were asking for some comments, and I was going to provide just a couple points or some dates for folks to be aware of and try and make. So the District 1 Community Network will meet next on August 4th. And this would be a great place to bring this information and get feedback and get some selling of it. Also, the West Seattle Transportation Coalition, we're not meeting in July, but we will be meeting. Oh, we're not meeting in July because we want everybody who would go to the West Seattle Transportation Coalition to go to the West Seattle Bridge meeting on the 21st. Anyway, oops, sorry. Let me get my dog off his leash. Here we go. But the West Seattle Transportation Coalition will be meeting on August 26th. And that is, again, another great place to bring this and get it publicized and get all kinds of feedback for these travel option plans.
Thank you, Deb. That's great. Appreciate
You bet.
that.
And I can come up with more. Thanks.
Oh, I know. Yep.
Sorry. Thanks.
Any other questions that folks have about any of the things that Sarah talked about? There were a lot. Okay. I think we can keep moving. And Heather, oh, before we go, Councilmember Herbold.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry for being a little slow on the uptake. In the reports that the council receives, the last one referenced some planning with let me see if I can find it, a contract with Alta Planning and Design to create a program and application to prove access to travel option information for people living and traveling to and through West Seattle and the Duwamish Valley. I didn't see the words Alta Planning anywhere, but I recognize we may have discussed it in some using some other language. Could you just tell me a little bit more about that?
Yep, I apologize, Councilmember Herbold. This is Sarah Zorgan. That was all about that slide 22 that Deb was just referring to. So Alta Planning and Design was my speaking point. That was the firm that we hired for the travel options program. So I apologize for not alerting about who the consultant is, but we're really excited to work with them. They're a really good transportation demand management kind of consulting firm. And this is a really interesting kind of project to use that for, because it's not a long-term project, you know, when you would think of how to really promote those travel options and encourage people to use it. So it's going to be very interesting, and it really relies on the community coming together to work together about how we can keep the network, the transportation network moving, you know.
So it sounds like it's more than just encouraging people to take to use alternatives to single occupancy vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct? What is a community-based travel option? I guess
so
my question.
We're going to be doing a lot of analysis on who's using the detour routes and how to figure that out with the data that we have available, and then trying to really come up with some a more like almost user group persona kind of mini campaigns to really see how we can encourage and promote and educate people on different ways they could get around depending on where they are starting from and where their destination point may be. So Alta Planning Design is going to be helping us do some of that data analysis to really determine where, who should be more potentially targeted for how we can promote different options for getting around.
Okay, thank you.
And then there'll be a bigger launch in partnership with our partners at King County Metro for how we can do this Transit Go ticket, and it's a different app, and then try to do some point-based rewards for trying to see how to entice and encourage people to try to do something potentially different and for at least one trip, you know?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Laura? You have your hand up?
I do. Hi, Laura Radford, the Executive Director of the Junction Association. And first of all, SDOT, thank you so much for all of the work you've put into this over these many months and all the number crunching. On the issue of number crunching, has there been any discussion about potentially opening up the Low Bridge to those restricted times, especially on the weekend? Are you finding that you still need to restrict the bridge to the times that you have currently posted? Any discussions around that?
I would love
all the time. We are talking about that all the time. In fact, we had a meeting just yesterday where we looked at the numbers. Laura, I appreciate your question. We are not at a position right now where we can open the Low Bridge on the weekends. We still have to make sure we're maintaining that access for particularly for transit and emergency access on the weekends. It's less of a big deal for freight, but we aren't seeing any sort of secession midday in terms of the use of the bridge. So thanks.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for the thoughtfulness on that. Always appreciate it.
Any other questions? Okay, Heather, now I think you're up. But you're on mute. There you go.
Maybe that's better. Hi everyone, Heather Marks here, your friend in charge of the West Seattle Bridge program. If we go to the next slide, please, I can start giving you some updates on West Seattle Bridge rehabilitation process. So some of this may be review. We have executed a contract with our pre-construction contractors. We've been it's not quite awarded because it has to be approved by Congress, but we've been informed of the intent to award an $11.2 million infra grant. You may recall this as the one that many of you sent notes of support for, and so we certainly appreciate that. Your efforts have borne fruit. We've also applied, thanks whoever did that. We also have applied for a waiver to the USDOT to use a community workforce agreement. We expect a response back from them in August. And in fact, we've received some initial comments and are working back and forth with them. We will set a disadvantaged business enterprise goal later in the design phase. That's something that WSDOT does for us. We have achieved 60% design. The plans are now with our contractors, and we will work together with our contractors as well as our design consultants to move forward to 90 and then 100% design this late summer and then fall. We are still on schedule to open in mid-2022. Next slide, please. So just as a reminder, we did a whole bunch of work in that central span when we did the stabilization work last year. This work that we are doing is going to include carbon fiber wrap as well as post-tensioning that will go all the way from the edge of the tail span through the center span all the way to the other side. So that is work that's going to help strengthen the bridge and is going to include more than just that center span where we focused our attention last year. We're also going to stabilize the ground under Pier 18 to make sure that we have good performance in the unlikely, well, it's super likely, it's just hard to predict, event of an earthquake. Next slide, please. So this is a new graphic. I hope you like it. It shows the tail span as I was just discussing, and it shows where those post-tensioning steel cables are installed as well as the anchors. We'll see a little better picture of that on the next slide, but it also indicates where the external and internal carbon fiber wrap is going to go. Next slide, please. This is a section view that shows you what the tail span is going to look like on the inside. The center span has already a whole bunch of post-tensioning steel cables and those anchors. I want to take this moment to just gently remind everyone that a bridge is a very complicated piece of infrastructure. It's not like a regular road. And there is a great deal of engineering that needs to go into the process of adding this strengthening equipment to the bridge. Steel cables and concrete blocks are really heavy, and bridges work together in unison, each of the members supporting and reinforcing the other. And so when you change one of the members, you have to make sure that you've made compensating movements all through the bridge. And so that's why the process of design is so important and why it takes so long. And I don't want to be too melodramatic, but I like to connect things to current events whenever we can. Perhaps you all have been following the news of the condos that failed in South Florida and what happened there. This is when the engineering and construction aren't done carefully enough to make sure that we are supporting the structure that we're trying to build. Next slide, please. The low bridge also needs some rehabilitation work. So we're going to be adding both internal and external carbon fiber wrap, as well as some epoxy crack injections. The work on the low bridge is going to take place under the same contract, but the timeline is going to be a little different. We really are focusing all of our energy on getting that high bridge open as quickly as we can. Next slide, please. It's no one likes a checklist more than me. Let me just say that. And it is really fun when we get to check off another thing. So our next checklist check is going to happen in October, when we will have reached final design and we'll be ready to move forward with those major rehabilitation packages. Next slide, please. And for all of those of you who have been waiting for a more finely grained schedule that I promised you for 60% design, here you are. You will note that we'll be in construction in October. We will have worked through the maximum allowable construction costs with our contractor, and we will begin some of those early work packages. One of the things that's different about doing a GCCM, General Contractor Construction Management contract, is we don't design the whole thing and then put it out to bid. So there's not like a day when construction starts. We'll start doing some of those early packages of ground penetrating radar and ordering materials. Just some of them can happen before we're at final design. We'll order materials the moment that we're done with final design. Obviously, you don't want to order the wrong kind of cable. That could have disastrous consequences. We will be installing the work platforms in November, and we will be installing the carbon fiber wrap and mounting the external post tensioning and completing the epoxy crack injection in the first quarter. And we'll continue that work all through the second quarter until we are done with high bridge construction, and then we will open the high bridge. That's in that orange block there. And then we will continue to focus our attention on completing low bridge rehabilitation work, and then we will close out the program. We don't anticipate, as part of this project, that we're going to have to close the low bridge to terrestrial traffic, though we may have to close it to marine traffic for short periods of time. We're in touch with the Coast Guard about that, of course. There is another project that we've talked about a little bit related to the low bridge, which is replacing the communications. We are hoping to get that done before the end of the year. That will require some closures of the low bridge in order to cut over the new communication system. Next slide, please. We're also doing some maintenance work this summer, routine maintenance that is planned and some that wasn't planned, but now we have an opportunity to do it while the high bridge is closed. We're going to scan the Spokane Street Viaduct. That's a normal inspection process. There will be some traffic impacts, and we will make sure to get notice out to community. We're also installing some additional high bridge monitors. They're going to help monitor bridge performance. And we also want to note that the bridge performed as expected during the record-breaking heat wave that we had. So that was really good to know. There are some other maintenance tasks that we would like to be able to do before we open the bridge, but we don't want to delay the opening of the bridge. So we're doing some more investigation before we decide whether or not we're going to do those activities. Next slide, please. Okay, what you got?
Mayor Nichols, you have your hand up. You go first.
I do. Heather, I understand some of the concepts that we're talking about here. For instance, the tensioning. I get what that does and why that's important. Mm-hmm. The external carbon wrapping. I get that because I've sprained my ankle and I've had to provide similar kind. The internal carbon fiber wrapping, I do not get what that does structurally to hold the bridge together.
So you could think the internal carbon fiber wrapping provides that additional rigidity, just like the external. So and when we say internal, this means internal to the bridge,
right?
Not internal to the concrete. So that's just going to provide some additional rigidity to the concrete and help balance out the tension that the steel is going to bring to it. So all of these things are carefully engineered and mathed within an inch of their lives to make sure that we're balancing the various forces that are at work on the bridge.
But what is it wrapped around?
It's not wrapped. It's more like wallpaper.
Oh.
Think about and actually, it's not really wrapped on the outside either. It's more like wallpaper.
Okay, I've never thought of wallpaper as a structural element, but okay.
Yeah, well, if it's carbon fiber reinforced polymer wallpaper, it definitely is.
It's harder to remove, I bet. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Deb, you have your hand up?
Hi, this is Deb Barker, and I have one reply to Mayor Nichols. And the bridge, when I was in the landmarks board, I learned about a bridge over, I think the 15th Avenue Bridge, north of the University District, which is a landmark, and they had carbon fiber wrapping on that landmark bridge. So it's in different areas for you to go see, but you may not know about it. So just heads up, that's when I first learned about carbon fiber wrapping and bridges and all that good stuff, but who knew it was on landmarks board. On page, going back to the PowerPoint, on page 34, there was the corridor maintenance work, and I was just curious if on that list of work there are things such as I brought up last week about the roadways with exposed rebar and the substandard road conditions. Beyond this, I guess it would be east of 4th Avenue South. Will there be like an I-5 to Fauntleroy Way fix up of the roadway system once the bridge is open, or is it still going to be incremental based on funding?
So some of that is one of the things that we would very much like to do in advance of opening the bridge, but there may be a problem getting that done without delaying the repair project. So that was one of those things that I was talking about, that there are some things that we very much like to do, but we don't want to delay the opening of the bridge in order to accomplish that.
Got it. Okay. So I just, because it just went to 4th Avenue South, I just wanted to confirm that you were looking even further east, maybe to I-5, but it just wasn't reflected on the map, and it may not work out with timing constraints.
Well, so I don't, the deck scan that we are doing is on the Spokane Street viaduct. So that's a structural thing to make sure that it's good to go, right? Okay. If there is spot repair that you feel like is necessary on the Spokane Street viaduct, if you could send me a note with the rough locations, that would be good. It's pretty new.
It is. I think what I brought up last month was the fact, and no one was quite sure who managed it, whether it was SDOT or WashDOT, was the exposed rebar as you go onto the northbound I-5 ramp off the Spokane Street. And, there's that mystery line of maintenance ownership. So some things.
Okay. Trevor will make a note of that and get back to you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'll just say, just real quick, Deb, on that. We alerted WashDOT because it's on it's east of 6th Avenue South. And so they are on it, and they're structural engineers. It has to go all the way to Olympia, and they got quite the.
What? Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks, Trevor.
No worries.
Liz, go ahead.
Hi, Liz Powell at West Seattle Bridge Now again. A couple questions for you. Given the final design timeframe, I think it's October, correct? When that'll be completed. Will this group have an opportunity to hear from Kramer on sort of a detailed scope of work during that time frame? Do you anticipate that happening at all?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. And then a second question that's somewhat related, and forgive me if this has been asked on a past call, but just in looking at the timeline, and our targeted open date is around this time next year. There's been some sort of rumblings and consensus in the structural engineering community that the bridge may, given the repairs that have already taken place, that the bridge may be able to open in some capacity before this mid-2022 timeframe. And by some capacity, I mean going, one way in, one way out. Has that been discussed? Is that something the structural engineers could answer?
Well, I'll tell you, Liz, I'm not sure that I agree with the premise. I don't think that there's consensus in the structural engineering community about that. The structural engineer of record for this structure does not concur with that assessment. And I think candidly, for structural engineers who are not involved with this particular project, to be suggesting that there's some faster way for us to get there is mildly irresponsible. So we are proceeding with the plan that has been carefully engineered, and we are working with our contractor to make sure that we can deliver a safe and open bridge to everybody as quickly as we can. Right now, that looks like the middle of 2022.
Okay, so no discussion about potentially opening up in a limited capacity at this point.
Since we think that that would not be safe, no.
Okay.
And let me also remind folks that maybe, if you didn't follow the stabilization work very closely, to do this work, we also have to open up the roadway deck and be able to get into access the inside the box girder. So when this construction is underway, there's absolutely no way for any vehicle to go across it because the deck is opened. And there's active work going on. I would just say, like Heather said, I mean, since in the last 18 months, we've heard any number of suggestions about this from the broader community. One person's name and professional license and liabilities on the line, and we also have to trust in what we're getting from the consensus structural engineers that are either working for SDOT or under contract with us, who all recognize that this is a long emergency for everybody in West Seattle, in all of the city and in the region, and that we're working as quickly as possible to restore this transportation connection.
Thanks.
Any other questions on any of the bridge updates from Heather? Councilmember Herbold.
Thanks. This is Lisa Herbold. I have what might seem like a goofy question, but from my perspective and the number of emails I continue to get, and that I got before when we were doing the stabilization, about people saying, because I can't see anything happening, I don't believe anything is happening, and obviously I get back to folks and let them know that much of the work is happening inside the bridge and you can't see it. But have we thought about a big banner that says repairs are happening inside? So just everybody knows, when construction begins in the fall. And, it's also a way to sort of celebrate that very exciting milestone with a big visual.
Hey, Councilmember Herbold, that's a fantastic idea. Right now, the work that is happening, and it's really hard work that's happening, is more in the design universe and in the construction universe. But as soon as we start doing that ground penetrating radar, and as soon as we start doing that utility relocation, that's a really good idea to have a banner up there so that people will know that something's happening. It's a great idea. It's interesting, those box girders that are underneath the bridge are huge. And so you can have like a whole team of human beings in there doing work and never see anything on the outside. So that's actually a really,
was super apparent to me when I was in there. It's
yeah,
big.
yeah. That's a great idea. Megan, make a note.
Great. Okay. Other great ideas people have? We'll take them all. We've got our last section here. And so we have half an hour left. So we have plenty of time for more comments and questions. I'm going to turn it over to Danielle Friedman. Danielle, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you.
Yeah, go for it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle Friedman. I work at SDOT on outreach and engagement with the West Seattle Bridge program. And I'm going to talk about some of the work that we're doing to engage community. Next slide. So we thought this would be a great opportunity to give a big update to everyone in West Seattle on what's happening with the bridge, especially letting them know that the bridge is on schedule, on track to reopen in mid 2022. So we've made a bunch of updates to our website. We're having a big virtual public meeting on July 21st, starting at 5:30. We let everyone know about this. We sent a mailer to 50,000 addresses in West Seattle and Duwamish Valley. And my colleague had the great idea to put a little starburst on the front saying bridge is reopening in summer 2022, hopefully. And then, so we're getting the word out, hanging up posters, doing radio ads in Spanish, digital display ads in multiple languages, social media, paid media ads in 8 different multicultural and local outlets. We are having the Department of Neighborhoods Community Liaisons do outreach to community members who speak other languages other than English in person. We're creating a video that we're going to feature at the July 21st public meeting that we will also be sharing on our social media and having going to in-person events that we're hearing about. We're going to one in Georgetown, as Sarah mentioned earlier. And as the community is feeling more confident about being out in person, we want to be there also, show up and let them know what's happening with the bridge. The idea was that we get the word out about the virtual public meeting, but knowing that not everyone will be able to go or maybe interested in going to a virtual public meeting, we also wanted to give the information to people in a way that they can learn about it by getting a mailer or seeing a poster or going to our website. After the virtual public meeting is happening on July 21st, we're going to be posting on our websites so people can watch it after if they weren't able to attend. So we have a number of ways that we're going to try to get the word out. Please let your networks know about the upcoming meeting, or they can visit our website and get information on how to apply for the Low Bridge, information about the bridge being repaired, and multiple other things that we have going on, travel options as well, if they need resources and ideas for how to get around the peninsula while the bridge closure is happening.
Deb, you had a comment that you wanted to make for Danielle. Do you want to share that real quick?
Okay. Yes. Hi, this is Deb. Danielle, Farmers Markets. West Seattle has one that is meeting, is held every Sunday. And I'm sure other South End communities have them as well. I just can never remember what they all are, but another great way to get the word out.
Absolutely. Thank you, Deb. We will be going to Farmers Market to let people know. If anyone has other ideas, you can share them now, or feel free if you think of other things in the future to email us or invite us to your events. We'd be happy to come. So again, virtual public meeting is happening next week. I guess we're going to open it up to these questions. What information do you think people would be most interested to learn about? And what questions do you think we're most likely to receive?
Yeah, so we thought about here is to open it up so that you all can help the team be prepared for the hard questions. What are the questions you think we're going to get? Things that you've heard, things that you've wondered about. You know, I think back to a couple of meetings ago where someone said, you know, we need to be able to answer like what happened. So what happened to the bridge? So if that's a question that you think we might get, I think just sort of your brainstorming of questions that we might hear, I think would be helpful in helping folks just be prepared. Or if there's things you think really need to be shared, I think we'd love to hear some of that from you all. Deb, go ahead.
Okay. My notes, people are going to ask, why aren't you starting now? And they're going to be much crankier about that than what I've just said. So in response to that, I just want to give kudos to Heather, your response about balancing, your balancing comment with when you tweak one thing on a bridge, you have to balance it on the other. So explanations such as those I think would be very useful to share with people because they're going to want to know why you can't start now, and any details such as that balancing one, or what happens when you don't correctly engineer something as in Florida. Those sorts of things I think are very important to get out to the community. From what I hear, people are still kvetching loudly and grievously. Why isn't this started and done already? So thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Marcy.
Yes, another helpful way I think to describe the work is something like, you know, we have to open up the bridge, so it's like cutting off the top of a box to get inside, and you can't have anyone traveling across the top. So anything you can use to describe, you know, that the work is happening internally in a simple, plain language way, I think is helpful. And again, thinking about plain language, you know, things people can understand. And then I also have just a couple logistical questions about it. Will this virtual meeting be held by a Zoom?
It is. Yeah. Danielle, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, it'll be on Zoom, and there'll be interpreters there, and it'll be fully accessible.
Great. Thanks very much, Danielle.
Other questions or ideas or things that you think we should be prepared for? What are the hard questions that you all hear that you have? Not that we're going to answer them today, but that we can be prepared to get them. Y'all are kind of quiet today. I'm just going to make that observation. It's a quiet group. So this is, I think, if you don't have other thoughts, or if you do and you want to share them after, feel free to send a note to the team, because any ideas and prep and suggestions that you have, I think would be really welcome. I think if there are no more comments or questions, then I'm going to do two things. One is to remind you all about the reflection form, and I think Gloria is going to post that in the chat so that you all can have the link to the reflection form. And then turn it over to Mayor Nichols to wrap us up.
Terrific. Thank you, Angie. Thank you all for your participation. It is a beautiful summer day out there, and you had lots of choices, but here you are in virtual reality, helping us continue our work on the West Seattle Bridge reopening. Our next meeting will be August 12th at 4 p.m. It's the afternoon meeting. That's a Thursday. Look forward to seeing you all. Looking forward to hearing more progress from SDOT, and thank you all for your work in the department. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.